Okay, Rick. Well, we're finally here and talking with other people about what mediation is, and it's good to finally be able to do this. I'm Robert Carey. I'm a mediator, and with me this morning, is,
Rick Foyles. Hi, welcome to the show.
and the show is mediation. What is it? Where did it come from? Who uses it? Why? Just questions like that. So, Rick, I know we've been doing this for quite a while, but what is mediation?
I've been in love with mediation now for almost 25 years. I remember the first time I was introduced to it, it was this whole new thing. And I could see early on the power that it had. And I've just been, they talk about being bit by the mediation bug, and I was bit really heavily. And I've been, originally when I started, I was interested in it only as a plan B, but it's really taken center stage for me. I really keep wanting to promote it and teach people and practice it.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get interested?
Well, the mediation became a part of internal work that I was doing with large organizations. Mediation was a way to resolve conflict between employees, conflicts between management and employees, and it was something that worked well with working with the union, if you will, and employees, but nobody really called it mediation. Okay, so if we said that we were mediating, nobody really would understand that, so we didn't talk about it. But what do you think? People use mediation today and not know that they're using those skills?
I think a lot of people misunderstand mediation, both the public and even some practitioners out there, what it's capable of, what's possible that can be accomplished with it. Some people use the word mediation and they're really meaning arbitration.
Mm-hmm.
Others think of counseling, if you just get somebody in a room, I'll be the go-between, so I'll mediate this for you. And really don't understand that it's a skill. There's a skill involved. So I think that, for me, that bothers me because I think so much of the industry is being harmed by misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
And the public doesn't know about mediation, or they think they have an awareness, like everybody tells me, oh, it's arbitration.
Yeah. Well, we know that it's not arbitration, even though arbitration is another skill set that can be used to resolve conflict. But resolving conflict through the use of mediation is a way for both parties to hopefully get what it is that they want, and not having a third party to tell them what they want or what they're going to do.
Yeah, that's the key, I think. You don't have someone in a room telling you what's going to be the result or the outcome. And to believe that I actually get some say, not only in terms of what I want to share and my perspective on the situation, but that I'm the one who gets to decide the outcome, not somebody else. Because they don't know me, they don't know my life, and I'm stuck with whatever somebody else says.
So that mediation, people use, as I said earlier, people use mediation every day in our daily lives. Parents use it with kids, husband and wives. They use it to resolve conflict. So we use it, but we might not realize that that's what we're doing. But what we do and the way that we use it is in a more formal setting, and where parties will come to us that are having a disagreement or conflict.
Well, let me ask you this, because I do see parents using some version of something with children, but oftentimes I see an authoritarian model being practiced, where sure the parent will ask some questions or they'll explore some things with the children, but in the end, okay, here's what you're going to do. And you either do it or you're in trouble, mister. And even on management, I see a similar thing. Okay, tell me your side, okay, here's what you're going to do. And just because that authoritarian model is contrary to what mediation
Yeah,
is.
well, that's, in some sense, that might be mediation. But parents and managers that use mediation, of the mediation approach, they don't end it with, that's what you're going to do.
You definitely had different parents than I did.
And probably so. Probably so. I'm not sure they were practicing mediation, but
Uh-huh.
things worked out fairly well. But when we're training people to be mediators,
Yeah.
and we do that, then part of that training is to dispel some of the misunderstandings about mediation and what it is. So for the folks out there, perhaps we can talk a little bit more about what mediation is, why it's used, how it's used. So you think that might be helpful for those folks?
Definitely. You talked about the workplace, that it's used there. It's used very effectively there. Most of the court systems are turning more and more to mediation. I see neighborhood disputes being turning to mediators. And
Homeowner associations?
right. Neighbor disputes, things like that. Barking dog cases, we call them. But also specialty areas like special education,
Okay.
where they can apply mediation. EEOC issues, elder care issues, divorce. I do a lot of divorce mediation in terms of helping people get a divorce without having to hire expensive attorneys. You can work it out yourself, which can be much cheaper and faster than doing it the other way. So there's all kinds of specialty areas that are starting to grow. I've seen real estate mediation start to grow. More and more areas.
You mentioned using an attorney in divorce mediation, and you used the word expensive. How does mediation compare as far as the cost factor as opposed to litigation?
Well, just for an example, two people getting divorced often will have to each hire their own attorney. So you've got the retainer fee that's necessary for each attorney right up front before anything
Okay.
else is done. And then the ongoing process of billable hours for both of them each time. With mediation, you hire one mediator, and depending upon that mediator, split the cost between the husband and the wife for that mediator. And you pay for just the hours that you need that mediator. And some of the stuff you can work out on your own outside so that you're not paying them to do it. So it almost half right up front, even if the mediator is charging the same amount per hour as one of the attorneys, you've cut your bill in half right up front.
So that's a plus
It can
factor
be.
for using
Yes.
mediator.
And people will call me all the time, how long will this take? Because it's an hourly rate. They'll say, how long will this take? And the answer is always the same. Depends on how much you two want to fight and argue. If you want to fight and argue, I'll be more than willing to sit there and watch you do that. But it's going to cost you an hourly rate. If you can do as much as you can coming in, and you're ready to negotiate what's important to you, it can be done very quickly.
So when a parties, and I use the term parties because it could be a husband and wife, it could be
Right.
neighbors, it could be folks who met by accident, car accident, what have you.
Uh-huh.
It could be a situation in a nursing home.
Yep.
That falls a little bit more, not a little bit, but under elder care. So there are many different scenarios for parties to use a mediator.
Yes.
So the parties, once they decide that they are going to use a mediator and they select the mediator that they want to use, then that whole process has to be worked out as far as when the mediation is going to take place, where it's going to take place, who's going to conduct the mediation, and also the cost. You mentioned that the cost would be split. Are there other cost involved in doing mediation?
Unless there's some write-up at the end, I usually just wrap that into the services that I provide. But sometimes you'll have someone, well, okay, I'll draft this up, and you have to pay the writing
Yeah,
costs.
well, that's the administrative technical
Right,
piece of it.
right.
One of the big factors that I find in parties that use mediation is that the emotional cost is far less than taking it to court or other ways individuals have for resolving conflict. So emotionally, it can be a lot less stressful than some of the other ways of resolving conflict. So it plays a big role. And if the mediation is set up in a way that, well, I shouldn't say set up, but parties want to mediate.
Yes.
And they understand that they're going to be the deciders of the agreement.
Yes.
So they know that whatever they walk away with, it's going to be what they want, not what a third party wants.
Absolutely.
So that can really cut down on the stress factor there. So when we talk about the cost and the benefit of mediation, it's not just the money side, the financial side, but it's also the emotional side of it too.
Yeah.
And,
Go ahead.
and one other thing, time,
Yes.
and we'll get to
Oh.
time in a second.
Yeah,
Go
yes.
ahead.
Well, and if you're including, and I think you are, that aspect of that your own power, that it really is a process where you have the power of deciding the future. Then that's a huge emotional benefit.
Mm-hmm.
To have someone else tell you what to do, and nobody likes to be told what to do, even if you know it's the right thing. It's much better to come to it on your own, because then you own it. You're more willing to live up to it, and that's what I find with people. They get to craft their own future. They're more likely to live up to it.
Right.
So,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
time. What
Yeah, well, the time,
What's a,
and I think about mediations where the parties, because of the constraints that they have with time, that we are able to set it up so that it works for them and not for someone else's schedule.
right.
So
right.
the mediation can be done between 9 and 5,
Yes.
or it can be done between 5 and midnight,
Right.
5 p.m. and midnight.
Right.
Or it can be done on Saturday or Sunday, whatever the parties want to work. I mean, there is flexibility with me, with you, with us in doing mediation. So we allow that to happen. So that's when I say time, and time is valuable. People.
Oh, yes. Well, and I know you've had this experience, but even doing workplace disputes, we would show up on the employee's schedule. So they're not losing any vacation time. They don't have to do it outside of work. The employers actually made it available during their work schedule. So yeah, when postal service cases, we would be there because the post office runs all night. I'm doing cases at 2:00 in the morning in some city.
Don't remind me of those. Yeah, I can recall doing mediations at 2:00 in the morning, and folks say, you're running your own business. Why do you have to work those kind of hours? Well, you want to accommodate your parties.
Right.
You want them to be able to benefit from this process. And in the case of the workplace, the managers, they don't want to disrupt the workflow.
Right.
So if you're willing to go in at midnight to do a mediation, then they're more than happy to accommodate you. And the other thing, it seems a little strange, but that comes from that, is that the parties in the dispute, in the workplace, they are a little bit more open to talk because someone is coming to their
Right.
workplace, to their spot, and they're not being hauled someplace else to talk about what's going on. So it can be interesting. It can be interesting and fun.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk about neutral space, but this is a space that they're already familiar with.
Yes.
They're empowered.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite case that comes to mind for you?
Well, There probably are, there, not probably, there are several mediations that I can recall that were very interesting, but one of the things in talking about that, and you're aware of this, that I can talk about that, but I can't talk about the specifics of that case because in mediation, there is a high level of confidentiality.
Right.
So once parties agree to mediation, then we are bound, and they are bound by the confidentiality. So we need to talk more about that, but you know, perhaps we can talk about how we got here and the folks who are responsible for bringing us here. You know, that was the ABC Nut Factory. So
Yes, we definitely want to thank our sponsors for helping to make this possible.
you know, I mean, they're nuts, but they're good nuts.
10 years to learn the business. 10 years to make a name. 1 year on your own. It takes time to build a small business, but only 60 days to transform it with email marketing from Constant Contact. Sign up with Constant Contact and get 60 days of free email marketing to generate referrals, connect with clients, and build the business you've always wanted. Constant Contact. Start your 60-day free trial today.
What happens when soldiers come home? Brene Foundation offers hero support to ensure that our heroes abroad can continue to be heroes at home. We link veterans with organizations who are dedicated to guiding the transition from military hero to civilian hero. If you want to find out how you can support our troops at home, please contact the Brene Foundation or visit brene.com.
Okay, before the break, you had asked a question or asked me to share a story, mediation story,
Yes.
and there are several stories that I can share. But what I need to let the audience know is that we can't just talk about what goes on in a mediation setting. That what parties say in those sessions, that's confidential. So I can share a story, but before I share that story or one of my stories, if you could talk a little bit about confidentiality and where that falls on in the regulations that we have to follow as mediators in the state of Georgia.
Right. So, and specifically in the state of Georgia, there are federal laws protecting mediators for confidentiality. And in many states, there are state laws. Georgia in particular has state laws that protect us. And confidentiality means that we are free to reject anybody who says, hey, can you tell us what happened, like a judge. We don't have to tell a judge what happened necessarily. We don't have to answer any questions about what's going on. And confidentiality, particularly in Georgia, is forever. So what you share in that room, the purpose for this is huge. Because if you're going to be in a setting with someone who's new, right? I mean, you haven't met them before. And you're being asked to share your information and your story in such a way that you can decide your own future. You want to be able to trust this person. I mean, who am I talking to?
Right.
And do I know that this will actually stay here in this room? And so confidentiality is designed specifically for everyone to feel that no matter what they say, offers, how they say it, they can talk about, hey, I might consider doing this, or I might consider making this offer, but none of that can be shared outside of the mediation session. So they're free to talk.
Okay. Does that apply to mediators talking between each other, like you and I? I mean, we mediate cases, we co-mediate, and we do mediation separately. Mm-hmm. So if I mediate a case that's really, I think is very, very interesting and stuff happened that might not have happened before, can I just tell you about that?
Well, we can't do that here in front of a really, huge audience. We can in a training, kind of a supervision type session, we can talk about where we felt like we could have tried something new. Here's where I got stuck. What would you have done? Here's something that was said. How would you have handled it? So we can raise ethical issues and things like that for our own growth and experience. But we can do that without sharing any information about the parties, the type of case necessarily that it was, anything that went on in terms of attitudes and
So
offers.
are you telling me that it wouldn't be okay for me to say, she said, he said, or anything like that? That
He and she doesn't give anything away. But if you start giving too much detail,
so I can't mention names.
no.
Can I tell you where they lived?
No.
Can I tell you what they look like?
No.
Okay, you asked me to tell a story. I got no story now.
Nothing to share, huh?
No, you just blew it. There's nothing to share now.
I had a mediation with 2 stick figures.
There you go.
No genders, no names.
No, I can share I can share things that happen around the mediation
Yeah.
that made the mediation work one way or the other, but the details of what was said, the outcome, no, I can't share that, even sharing it with you.
No, even
Yeah.
mediators to each other.
Right. So, but okay. So, having cleared all that up, that narrows it down to the story that I'm able to share. So I'll just share a quick story with you. There was a mediation case that I did. The parties came in. I set them down. I went through the mediation process with them. They told their stories. They came to an agreement. I wrote the agreement up. They paid me, and everybody left, and that was it.
That's a fascinating story.
Isn't
I
it?
love those
That is-
success stories. Mine is exactly the same
You
story.
know, after a while, they sort of run together.
I have
No,
hundreds
they-
of those,
yeah.
actually.
No, they don't run together. Trust me, everyone is different. So,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
But I did have a mediation where parties came in, and it came out of civil court.
Mhm.
It was in one of the counties here in Florida, wrong state. In Georgia, forgot where I was there for a moment. Thought I was
You
on,
do get around a lot.
yeah, I was on a beach. But the parties came in, and they had the complainant, the person who had filed with the court, had filed because they were owed some money, and they had not been able to collect the money, so they filed in small claims court.
Mhm.
And so judge sent it to mediation, and I caught the case.
Exciting.
And the parties came in, and it was an older individual and a younger individual.
Ooh.
And the older individual had filed the complaint that the younger individual borrowed money, roughly $500, and had not paid it back.
From the business?
No, this was a personal.
Okay.
Personal.
All right.
And this had taken place several months, and the younger person had not said anything to the older person about paying the money back or anything. So the only thing that the complainant felt they could do was file a claim. So they did. It came to mediation, and we went through the process, and the complainant tells their side of the story. And once I heard that, then said, okay, then the respondent was supposed to tell their side
Uh-huh.
of the story. And I waited for a moment for the respondent to tell their side of the story, and figuring give them time to get themselves together. And then, the strange things, as you know, happen in mediation and when you're doing mediation. But I noticed that there was a tear coming out of the eye of the respondent.
And this is the person who owed the money.
This is the
supposedly.
person that owed the money.
Okay.
And I didn't have a clue. And I ran the tapes back very quickly to see, okay, what was said that it could cause that. And there wasn't a question that came up for me to say what's happening with you. I could have said what's happening with you, but I didn't feel that was the right thing to do.
Right.
So I just allowed it to play through. And finally, after a few moments, the respondent looked across the table at the complainant and said, "Mom, I'm sorry."
Oh my.
It was a mother and daughter.
Wow.
So that, when I think about the people who bring complaints to mediation, and we usually think in terms of businesses or big stuff.
Right.
But this was a small amount of money, but it was a big thing. And who knows how that relationship would have turned out if it had not been for mediation.
Yes.
Think I can put that on a billboard?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now that's a great story. I mean, yeah, because you can easily imagine this mother and child standing in front of a judge, how painful that would have been, or how hard that would have been. I mean, that could have been traumatizing.
Well, the judge would have made a decision,
Right.
and we both know pretty much what that decision would have been. After the judge found out that it was a mother and daughter, the judge probably would have said, "Young lady,
Right.
pay." And they would have walked out of the court with it having been settled. But would both of them have been happy?
Yeah.
And some folks would say, yes, the money was paid back.
End of.
End of story. But we know that many times what comes out in mediation is that the issues that the parties come to the table with, many times it's not the issue that is causing the conflict.
Absolutely.
So we have a process for getting below the surface, if you will, to get at what the real issue is. And this is your baby, so I'll let you talk about this.
Well, I know it's become a cliche. I see it on TV all the time. But you hear win-win, right? In a courtroom with that mom and daughter, the courtroom is designed for a win-lose.
Mm-hmm.
That one person walks away a winner, the other person walks away a loser. You can't have it any other way in that kind of a setting. But with the mediation process, we really can get to both sides having their needs met. Where the courtroom is often measured by the law, this setting is measured by what is it you need out of this situation? What's driving this conflict? And so you can get much deeper. Mm-hmm. That deepening allows us to explore many more options. And in some cases, then we actually have the ability to go farther than anything that could ever happen in a formal setting or in a courtroom or an EEOC office like that. Because we just have that chance, that freedom.
But then now, I know that we can do that, and in the story that I shared, it might not, on the surface, it might not appear that any of that was done. But the environment that we set up for the mediation to take place allows for
Yes.
that to happen, and that is for the real need or want to come out.
Right.
So, and you spoke a little bit to that, but I want you to say a little bit more about the what do you call it now? Need exploration.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. See, conflict is motivated by some sort of threat to a personal need. So we tend to step into a conflict as a result of wanting to protect what feels like a threat to that need. What most people end up doing then is, because of how we've been cultured about presenting our side of the story or our evidence, we only talk in terms of facts and designed to, I'm going to try and convince you to do what I want. And we don't even think about our need anymore. We just think about making you give me what I want. And we have all kinds of techniques for trying to force the other person.
So, well, just communicating, will that do it?
No, communication won't work. And oftentimes, you have to have more skills than just communication skills. It's not the problem that we can't talk to each other, we can't communicate. The problem oftentimes is what you're asking for is a threat to me, and what I'm not doing is a threat to you in that personal need level. So if as a mediator, and this is where we're back where we talked about having some skills to somebody who knows what they're doing, then we can look at the conflict and start to explore what those underlying needs are, and by doing so, come up with multiple options for getting that need addressed. And in that way, we're able to go way farther than any legal system could ever go.
So if we're in a conflict,
Right.
and I tell you that this is what I want,
Mm-hmm.
so you hear what I say about what I want,
Mm-hmm.
but as a mediator, then you're saying, is that really what they need,
Ah,
or is that want hiding
right.
a need?
Yeah, and here's what well, we train mediators to do, at least the ones that work with us. And that is that when somebody asks for something, it is never their need, what they're asking for. So someone asks for $500. That is not their need. All requests are an action plan
Mm-hmm.
designed to meet a need. So the request itself is not the need. So what we train our mediators to do is to look behind the request or peel away that request so that you can find out what's inside. And what's inside that request will give you the clues to what that person's need is. That's cool.
Okay, so that's getting to where it is that we need to go. But what I'd like to do, and we'll have to save this for a later time, but to talk about the orange.
Yes, we've got to get to the orange.
Yeah.
We can't do this without talking about the orange.
So we'll talk about the orange, and I believe that will give folks out there some real insight
Yeah.
into the difference between want and need.
Absolutely.
And how we get at the need and able to help folks come to an agreement.
Mm.
So list of topics to cover, perhaps the very next one, the orange.
The orange.
Okay.
That'll be cool.
So, now folks are going to be waiting to hear about the orange. And if they were to call us, we're not going to tell them about the orange?
No.
So they'll have to tune in.
They'll have to tune in.
But they can reach us. You want to give them a web address for where they can reach us?
Yes, the web address is, of course, www, and it's centerfordisputesolutions.com.
That's Center
For
Dispute
Solutions.
Solutions.com. And maybe a telephone number?
Telephone number 404-991-0072.
And if they want to talk with you, they'll say they want to talk with,
Dr. Rick Voiles.
and if they want to talk with me, they'll just say, I want to talk with Robert. Okay?
Yes. Hey, I'm real excited about being here with
Yeah.
you and doing this. Finally, we've talked about it for years.
Yeah, well, it looks like we've reached our destination, so park the car, let's get out.
All right.
So.